Hi and welcome to this short video. I'm Nick Davis of N Davis Training. Apologies, I haven't produced any videos in a while, and unfortunately life gets in the way, but there we go, I'm back again. And in this video what I'm going to do is actually build on one of my previous videos, which was entitled What It Means to Fail. Now if you watch that video you'll know that fail should not actually mean failure as such. What it actually should mean is first attempt in learning. Now if you haven't had a chance to watch that video and or you'd like to review it and watch it again, then the link for that will be coming up very soon. However, what I'm going to do in this video is build on that same theme, and actually I reckon that making mistakes can be great, and I'll explain why. Now a lot of this sort of thinking has come about as a result of reading the excellent book called Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz MD, which basically is centred around this theme, that effectively what we should be doing is seeing mistakes as information to help us to get towards our goal rather than evidence that we can't actually achieve it. And this is actually quite powerful, but this was even more compounded for me as a result of reading an article in the Times a few weeks back, which is about a book by leading child psychologist Andrew Fuller, which is entitled Unlocking Your Child's Genius. And what this book is actually about is basically the strategies which parents can adopt in order to develop their child's genius without being too pushy, because that's an easy trap which parents can fall into, especially if they're anxious for their children to succeed. And there are a number of strategies which he mentioned, and one of the most interesting ones was basically from the point of view of not criticising or trying to put right every mistake the child makes. And this is actually quite important, because taking that approach can actually increase the child's anxiety and actually achieve the opposite effect. And this is something which, as I say, could undermine the genius mindset. So what he suggests instead is that instead of criticising, encourage them to think of alternatives or think of a new way of doing things when they make a mistake. And indeed he sort of compounds this by suggesting that basically the parents should be encouraging the child to think like they're a scientist, because that's the approach that scientists take. When they're experimenting with something, they make mistakes, they learn from the mistakes and they move on until the successful conclusion of the experiment. Indeed, if you think about it from the point of view of all the great scientists throughout history and the great inventors, this is the approach they've always taken. The example that's quoted in the article in the book is James Dyson, who famously created 5,127 prototypes of his vacuum cleaner before succeeding, and he stated that he learned from every one. And this is something that's not unique to geniuses such as James Dyson. You probably recall in the previous video that I mentioned about Thomas Edison, who famously failed 1,000 times before he finally developed his light bulb. This is what we should be doing with children, according to Fuller, and I totally agree. Get them to think they're like a scientist. However, this got me thinking, because this is perhaps not something that's just unique to children. Maybe it's the same for adult learners as well, and it's something that we as instructors and trainers could take on board. Especially the case if you happen to be dealing with learners who maybe when they were children were criticised for everything they did, and therefore as a result of that they thought that they couldn't actually achieve things because of the mistakes they made, and they were criticised for making those mistakes. And as I say, this is something I think that trainers and instructors could certainly do for all types of training, and maybe even physical skills. Now physical skills, obviously there's an important safety element, and it's important for instructors and trainers to monitor that in order to ensure that mistakes don't lead to safety errors and somebody being injured. But that's the duty of care of the trainer and the instructor for obvious reasons. However, even with physical skills, if stuff is being learnt in slow time, which is under safe conditions, maybe we could do the same and encourage our learners to think like they're scientists. And indeed this might be particularly useful if you think of it from the point of view of the Honey and Mumford model, which you may or may not be familiar with, and that's something I might cover in a future video. But where, say for instance, you have learners who maybe are theorists or pragmatists in the way that they learn, then encouraging them to think like they're scientists might be particularly useful. But this might also be the same for you if you happen to be someone who's trying to achieve success. Again, think like you're a scientist. Allow yourself the wriggle room to make mistakes and learn from them. So that's about it really. I'll leave you with that thought. And as I say, If there's anything, as I said in previous videos, in fact, if there's anything you'd like to ask me about in relation to this video, or maybe that's been covered in other videos, then by all means get in touch. You can contact me on mail@nicholas-davis.com, and I very much look forward to hearing from you. So that about wraps it up. I'd like to say thank you very much for listening, and I'll see you in the next video.